The American Psychological Association has issued an apology to people of color for its contributions to the establishment of systemic racism in America. Since its inception in 1892, members of APA's work have been relied upon to shape policy, educational standards, and construct America's institutions. The APA acknowledges the role race has played in psychology in a resolution published on their website. Regarding psychology's 19th century origins, the resolution reads in part, this early history of psychology rooted in oppressive psychological science to protect whiteness, white people, and white epistemologies reflects the social and political landscape of the U.S. at the time. The APA's apology earmarks how science has been contorted to uphold and justify racism throughout America's history. Also, how racism has relied on science for its existence and implementation into the American systems. Joining us to discuss is CEO and Executive Vice President of the American Psychological Association, Dr. Arthur C. Evans, Jr. So, Dr. Evans, tell us about this apology, what made this important to do now, and what do you think it means for the society at large?
Well, psychology, like almost any institution or field in our society, is influenced by the ideas within the society. And racism has been with us since the very beginning. And we felt that, particularly at this particular time in our history, it was important for us to acknowledge how those ideas have been a part of American psychology and how we needed to then address that. I think there are a confluence of things that led to us doing this now. First of all, this goes back probably almost a couple of decades that people have been talking about the need for an apology, a need to acknowledge these issues in our field. But I think last year, with all of the awareness of the disproportionate impact of COVID on African Americans, the police shootings, and those kinds of things, that all came together, and we really said that we need, as a field, to acknowledge what we have done, how we've contributed to these problems, and to start to make amends and to address those issues.
Give our viewers some examples of how the work of psychologists in the APA kind of contributed to upholding of white supremacy in America.
A lot of ways. Well, first of all, psychologists develop intelligence tests, and we know that a lot of the early testing and development of those ideas were based on the idea of white superiority. Psychologists develop tests for lots of other areas and fields, for selection and for employment, for testing our children for educational attainment, and so forth. And there's a theme that sort of runs through our field where whiteness or being white has been the standard, and other groups have been a variation of that. The problem with that, and psychologists know this, is that if you are going to evaluate any group or any community, that you have to do that evaluation and you have to look at that group in their context, not in comparison to other groups. And yet our field did that. And so this is just a recognition that those ideas early on in our field have had a deleterious impact on communities of color, and that we as a field have to address that.
Just help me to understand this and get into the weeds a little bit on this. What does that
Sure.
mean, not compare them to one group or another? Does that mean that the references being used in the test were associated with white people, white children, white applicants to whatever degree, and therefore they would not have been known or easily associated with Black or Hispanic or Asian people, and therefore they would have done more poorly on the test because they didn't have the references? I'm just trying to get help to our readers, our viewers, to understand
Sure.
how that would work.
So let me just give a simple example. Intelligence. Let's take the issue of intelligence. Intelligence is really about how we can navigate our environment. And so, if you're going to test someone's intelligence, you have to do that in their context. If you were to go back, say, 200 years ago, and you were looking at people who lived in an agrarian society, they were farmers, how one would assess one's intelligence in that environment would be different than you might assess intelligence in a highly urbanized environment. The kinds of things that you would need to do in those two environments to adapt to those two environments would be very different. Um, the same thing is true when it comes to looking at groups. If you're going to try to understand intelligence within a group, for example, you need to do that, or intelligence of a group, you need to do that within the context of that group. And psychologists in psychology did not do that. We set a standard that was based on one group and then compared all other groups to that standard, in this case, people who were white. And if you think about it, if we had done the opposite, if we had gone into African American communities, developed tests based on what it meant to navigate through that world, and then compared whites or other groups to that, it would be very apparent to people that that is not an appropriate way to do that kind of assessment. And so, if we're just using a simple example, that would be an example of the kinds of ways that these ideas got into our field. And then we didn't do what we knew as scientists, as psychological scientists, were the right ways to proceed around those issues.
You know, does this mindset, this kind of positioning within the field also lead to black people not being properly diagnosed and therefore treated for things that you know, if this did not exist, they would be recognized as having a issue that needed to be treated?
Absolutely. And, our field has used or misused assessment. We know, for example, if you are African American, you're more likely to be diagnosed with more significant psychiatric conditions. For example, more likely to be diagnosed with schizophrenia than other communities, even though we know that the prevalence of those conditions is the same across different groups. So, yes, that bias has influenced and seeped into how we assess people in clinical settings and the kind of care that we give people.
Dr. Evans, thank you so much for joining us tonight and explaining this. And I think everyone appreciates the apology from the APA.